Callie Hardig from Arkansas, Caleb Ziegelbauer from Florida, Woodrow Turner Bundy from Nevada. For each of these children, what started out as a slight headache resulted in doctors giving them a death sentence just days later. They had each mysteriously become the unwilling hosts of a terrifying parasite straight out of a science fiction horror movie. One that has infected hundreds of people, killing 98% of them within a matter of days. And it's lurking in our water, just waiting for an unwitting victim to allow it access to their body, so it can wriggle its way up into their heads and feed on their brain.
Man, it's hot today. I'm sweating buckets over here. Oh, hey, bro. What the heck? It's like 100 degrees in here and you're drinking hot coffee?
Precisely. A hot drink will heat up the body, but that also kicks off a cooling response, sweating. And when sweat evaporates, it cools you off. So in the end, drinking something hot has a cooling effect. You should try it.
Heck no. But you know what we should do?
Eat some spicy food, which also is known to induce sweating and thus has a cooling effect on the body?
No! Enough with the sweat, you weirdo. We should all go for a swim at the lake. See? Bean agrees.
Just go on without me. I'd rather not risk it.
Come on, bro. It'll be great.
It could be great. It could also be a horrifying dance with death.
Seriously? What are you afraid of? Nessie?
Of course not. But there are monsters in the water. Billions upon billions of them. I'm serious. Do you realize that worldwide, water-related illnesses kill 5 million people a year?
What, are you a germaphobe now?
I am not phobic of anything. I am only informed. But regardless, among the countless potentially dangerous microorganisms, it's this one deadly parasite in North American lakes that concerns me the most.
Uh-huh. All right, I'll bite. Who died an unusual and terrible death this time?
Callie Hardig was a happy and healthy 12-year-old girl living in Little Rock, Arkansas. One day in July 2013, Callie went swimming with her friends at Willow Springs Water Park. The recreational facility, which was built in 1928, had a natural sand-bottom freshwater spring that fed its lake. There was a 400-foot water slide, a large kiddie pool, 2 log rolls, water trampolines, a playground, along with basketball and soccer areas.
Oh man, this place rocks!
On the surface, it sure did. But below the surface, there was something lurking, looking to claim its next victim, while Callie and her friends were splashing, frolicking, and laughing together in the lake. A few days later, Callie started feeling sick. She said, "I started with a really bad headache." At first, the family thought it was just an ordinary headache or possibly the flu, so Callie decided to just sleep it off, sure that it would go away by the morning. But no, all of a sudden, the headache just started getting worse, so I told Mama, she said. And as her mother Tracy watched Callie's eyes roll back in her head, she knew that something was seriously wrong. Tracy and her husband hurriedly took Callie to the Arkansas Children's Hospital in Little Rock. After conducting tests, the doctors delivered a grim diagnosis. The doctors called her condition a death sentence. In fact, they told her parents to prepare themselves for the likelihood that Callie would be dead by Sunday. And so began her desperate fight against certain death.
Just because she went swimming in a lake? How? And whatever it is, come on, bro. This seems like way too rare a case to actually be afraid of it. You know, like when you've said about shark attacks. Despite everyone being so scared of them, sharks hardly ever attack people.
That may be true, but Callie is not the only case.
She's not.
Caleb Ziegelbauer, a 13-year-old boy living in Florida who faced a similar situation as Callie. During a family outing, he was swimming at Port Charlotte Beach in Florida, in an estuary between the freshwater Peace River and the saltwater Gulf of Mexico. Similar to Callie, he first experienced headaches within a few days after swimming in those waters. Then he became lethargic, developed a high fever, and began suffering from neck pain. Then it turned really serious when Caleb began experiencing hallucinations. His parents decided to jump in the car and rush him to the Golisano Children's Hospital of Southwest Florida. During the hour-long ride, his mother, Jessie Ziegelbauer, said that his condition deteriorated rapidly. Doctors who treated Callie and Caleb came to the conclusion that both were sick with naegleuriasis, also known as primary amoebic meningoencephalitis.
That's quite a mouthful.
I'll make it easier for you. Just call it PAM. It's a meningitis-like disease that affects the brain. If you get naegleuriasis, aka PAM, you may feel symptoms such as headaches, nausea, vomiting, fever, and exhaustion within the first 1 to 9 days. Symptoms all too easily dismissed as being caused by something ordinary such as too much stress or the flu. But remember, these are the symptoms that Callie and Caleb experienced before being given days to live. As PAM progresses, these indications become more serious, usually similar to meningitis. Your neck will stiffen, you start to become confused, lose your balance, and start having trouble focusing. Then it gets worse. Within a few days, you begin to experience hallucinations and terrible seizures. By the time you suffer from these symptoms, death is around the corner. The worst thing about this disease is that it progresses very rapidly. In fact, most people who become afflicted with PAM die within 1 to 18 days after the symptoms start to appear.
So that's terrifyingly awful and everything, but, what's so bad about the lake water that causes this?
It's not the lake water, it's what lives in it. When you bathe in the water, there's a nasty creature that might be swimming with you. This invisible killer is called the Naegleria fowleri, the brain-eating amoeba.
Jeez, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. But you're telling me this thing feeds on brains?
Let's just shorten it to N. fowleri. It was named after Malcolm Fowler, an Australian pathologist who authored the original series of case reports in the British Medical Journal in 1965. Also, it should be said that there are a number of species of Naegleria, but only the fowleri species causes PAM. While it was first identified in Australia, scientists believe that it evolved in the United States. In fact, most cases of PAM happen in the southern or southwestern states, with over half of them in Texas and Florida alone. This dangerous parasite lives in warm bodies of freshwater, including lakes, ponds, rivers, hot springs, and water parks. Callie swam in a lake, and Caleb in an estuary, both in fresh water. Callie lived in Arkansas, while Caleb lived in Florida, both southern states.
Interruption. It is also found in soil or sand, badly maintained municipal water supplies, water heaters, at the mouth of warm water discharges, and in poorly chlorinated and unchlorinated swimming pools.
So what, it's everywhere where there's water?
Negative. N. fowleri cannot survive in salt water, properly treated municipal water sources, and properly chlorinated pools.
Okay, so as long as you close your mouth while you're in untreated fresh water, you're safe. You wouldn't purposely drink lake water, would you?
But you will not contract N. fowleri from swallowing water even if it is contaminated with the amoeba. You get it when the water flows through your nose when you're swimming. The amoeba starts off as an inactive cyst at temperatures below 10 degrees Celsius. When the water conditions and temperatures are right, which is about 25 degrees Celsius, it undergoes metamorphosis and becomes a trophozoite, the form in which the amoeba can feed and replicate. Finally, it goes through its flagellate stage, which is when it can also enter the human body. So it works like this. The amoeba enters through your nose. It travels through your nasal cavities and up through your skull, following your olfactory nerve, olfactory bulbs, and eventually to the frontal lobe of your brain. Now, the human brain is a sterile environment, meaning it's germ-free.
Well, that means I'm safe. I don't have any germs here, so no food for the amoeba, right?
Yes, but that is exactly the problem. N. fowleri normally eats bacteria in the water. However, in the brain, there are none. Thus, it begins to eat the brain cells as a food source. It does this through a process called tragocytosis, in which the N. fowleri uses its amoebastome, a unique sucking apparatus extended from its surface, to gnaw and nibble on the brain cells. The condition then becomes a dangerous disease, primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, or PAM. In other words, your brain accidentally becomes food for the organism, thus it's nicknamed brain-eating amoeba.
Oh, well, isn't that just great? Now I've got to make sure I stay away from anyone who's got headaches and neck pain or risk having my brain devoured.
Well, in that department, you're in luck. It's not transmissible between hosts.
Whew, thank heavens.
Nevertheless, the prognosis for people infected with PAM is very poor, even with medical treatment. According to a study from the National Library of Medicine, the disease has a mortality rate of 98%, with deaths occurring in 2 weeks or less. Studies attribute this sad fact to delays in diagnosis, a lack of effective and safe treatments, and the complexities of delivering medicines to the brain. As of 2021, there have been an estimated 400 cases worldwide coming from 39 countries. However, the US, Pakistan, Mexico, Australia, the Czech Republic, and India seem to be the most affected. These countries may be more prone to the disease due to their warm climates all year long. Of the 400 reported cases, no more than a dozen people survived. PAM is a rare but fatal disease. As such, it isn't immediately noticed by healthcare providers. And to make matters worse, symptoms of the N. fowleri infection are clinically similar to bacterial or viral meningitis, reducing the suspicion of PAM and delaying the appropriate diagnostic testing and treatment. Such was the unfortunate case for Woodrow Turner Bundy, a previously happy and healthy 2-year-old boy from Nevada. It was believed he was enjoying a swim at Ash Springs, a local hot spring, when he, unfortunately, contracted the disease. Woodrow bravely fought for life for 7 days, but eventually his body couldn't take it any longer. His mother, Brianna Bundy, recalled that there was so much life in her little toddler. He loved animals, chickens, rabbits, cows, and especially elk. He loved life, and he loved his family with every ounce of his soul, she wrote in his obituary. Woodrow's life was a testament to how we should all live.
That's really sad.
It is. It's quite alarming that the N. fowleri amoeba thrives in common bodies of freshwater, but in some cases, it can find its way to your home.
No way!
It's rare, but it happens. You see, a man in Florida died of naegleuriasis in 2023, but he did not swim in any contaminated water. Rather, according to the Centers for Disease and Control Prevention, or CDC, the man rinsed his sinuses every day with unboiled water from the tap. Apparently, the municipal water supply at that time was contaminated by the N. fowleri amoeba. Additionally, health officials mentioned that this was the first ever case of naegleuriasis during the winter in the US. Because of this case, CDC officials advised people to only use sterilized water or saline solution when doing a sinus rinse, which is usually done with a neti pot.
A whatty pot?
A neti pot. It's a teapot-shaped contraction with a nozzle. You fill up the neti pot with sterile water or saline solution. You tilt your head to the side and pour the contents in one of your nostrils. Your mucus and snot drain out of the other one. Then you repeat the process on the other nostril. You can boil tap water to make it sterile, or you can put chlorine tablets and let it sit for a few minutes to disinfect the water.
Well, our faucet has a filter, so it should be okay.
Nope, it isn't. Microbes can still pass through the filter. If you don't want to sterilize the water, you can always buy prepackaged certified sterile water at the drugstore. Also, it should be noted that the neti pot needs to be regularly cleaned.
Oh man, this is all making the idea of going swimming at the lake a little freaky. What a bummer.
Now you understand why I don't want to swim at the lake.
Missing critical information detected. There are simple preventative measures that can be taken to avoid contraction of this disease. For example, the N. fowleri amoeba thrives in warm water. Therefore, humans can reduce the chance of exposure by avoiding swimming in fresh water during the summer months.
What kind of crappy advice is that? Why would I want to go swimming when it's cold?
Comfort parameters of delicate humans acknowledged when swimming during the summer months. Since humans can only be infected if the amoeba enters through the nose, a nose clip can be used to block the entrance to the nasal passage. Another useful tip is to keep the head above water in naturally hot water, such as hot springs. It is also important to not dig up or stir up the sand, mud, or sediment in shallow, warm, fresh water. The amoeba thrives in these places.
Callie and Caleb, who ended up in critical care, fighting for their lives as the N. fowleri feasted on their brain cells, both swam in fresh water during the hot summer months without nose clips.
Oh, dang right. Those poor kids. Did they end up making it out okay?
Well, considering they were facing a survival rate of about 2%, things weren't looking good. Callie had a very high fever of 103 degrees Fahrenheit, and she was put on a ventilator as she was unresponsive to stimuli and unable to breathe on her own. Diagnostic procedures revealed an increase of white blood cells in the girl's spinal fluid. A sample of the spinal fluid was strained and showed the presence of amoeba. DNA testing confirmed that it was the dreaded N. fowleri. Callie's temperature had to be brought down to 90 degrees Fahrenheit using chilled pads around her body to reduce the swelling in the brain and prevent herniation, which could kill the patient. Within 6 hours of her admittance to the hospital, Callie underwent surgery so a mixture of antibiotics could be administered to her brain. Among the drugs was miltefosine, an experimental anti-amoeba drug that the doctors got directly from the CDC. It was first made in the 80s as a cancer treatment, then later found to be useful for leishmaniasis, a skin infection. Then, in 2013, the CDC recommended it as a treatment for naegleuriasis and is now on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. Callie stayed in the ICU for 22 days. Mother Tracy recalled, "It was like riding a roller coaster. I mean, one moment things would be good, and then the next moment something else could happen."
What about Caleb?
Caleb had to be hooked up to a ventilator and periodically suffered from seizures and drifted in and out of consciousness. The hospital sent a sample of his spinal fluids to the CDC. Interestingly, the tests resulted in a negative for encephalopathy. However, the doctors at the hospital believed that the amoeba was the cause anyway, and continued treatment due to his symptoms and his exposure to brackish water. Fortunately, amidst the uncertainty, Caleb made a slow but steady recovery. His Aunt Katie said, 39 days ago, when Jesse and Eric brought Caleb to the ER, and doctors were beginning to realize it was the very worst case scenario possible, they told them they had 4 days left with their son. Tops, 4 days. And today, they started to talk about discharge from the hospital. The family was extremely relieved after those harrowing days. They expressed their profound gratitude towards the medical staff at the Golisino Children's Hospital of Southwest Florida. His other Aunt Elizabeth remarked on just how strong and resilient Caleb was. The support of his family and friends gave him the strength to endure his most desperate and darkest moments. Caleb stayed in the hospital for almost 39 days. After he recovered enough, he was transferred to Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, a rehabilitation facility in Chicago, so he could continue his recovery. Caleb had to work with therapists to regain his sitting balance, head and neck control, and his ability to swallow safely and breathe effectively.
That's incredible. Good for Caleb. What about Callie? Did she beat those brain-eating buggers too?
Yes, I'm pleased to report that she did. Callie is now 23 years old and a mother. She made a nearly complete recovery, although she occasionally struggles with blurry vision in her left eye thanks to scar tissue from the disease. Callie was even able to enjoy swimming again.
Man, after what happened? That's brave of her.
Caleb, on the other hand, can only stand, walk, and talk a little. You see, the amoeba can cause permanent damage and inflammation of brain tissue, which affects parts of the brain that control speech and language. For the most part, he now needs a wheelchair to move around.
That sucks. I guess he's lucky to even be alive, though.
Absolutely. Him and Callie are 2 of the dozen or so people who have managed to survive an encephalopathy infection.
But all in all, bro, if we look at the bigger picture here, there are ways to prevent the infection, there is treatment, and in the bigger scheme of things, it's a very rare disease that you'd be super unlucky to get. Come on.
Well, you have a point there. The very low incidence of PAM makes epidemiologic studies quite challenging. Scientists are still baffled as to why certain persons become infected with encephalopathy, while millions of other people who swim in warm freshwaters do not.
So there you go. The chance of you getting PAM is slim after all. Just take the necessary precautions and come to the beach with us, okay?
Oh, all right, fine. But I'm wearing my suit.
Yes! Let's go! Dang it, bro. I knew you wanted to protect yourself, but this is insane.
I'm not taking any chances. And neither should you. So make sure you subscribe to our channel to arm yourself with knowledge. It's also the best thing you can do to help us keep making more videos. Like this one, where we investigate fatal nightmares, the mysterious medical phenomena where healthy young people suddenly scream out in the middle of their sleep and then die without ever waking. Click the video on screen to watch now.